Thank you so much for listening to Blue Sky Horse Radio. This is at CKMS 102.7 FM, Radio Waterloo. I'm located in southwestern Ontario. Today with me on the phone is Steve Critchley, and he runs a veteran-run charity called Can Praxis, and he's going to tell us all about it. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming on Blue Sky Horse Radio today.
Well, thank you very much for the invite. Very much appreciate.
That's awesome. Could you briefly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Once again, Steve Critchley. I spent 28 years in uniform with the Canadian Armed Forces. During that time, I was able to go out on 3 different deployments around the world, and it was always good to return home for family time, etc. And with that, now it's founder and facilitator at this time for Can Praxis, specialized equine therapy program for those in uniform who are dealing with operational stress injury.
That's really amazing. Thank you for letting us know that. So for people who are new to the program or to your program or to hearing about Can Praxis, could you explain what Can Praxis is all about and how the program is offered?
Basically, it's the understanding that if you've been diagnosed with an operational stress injury, such as PTSD, that conflict and crisis becomes part of your everyday life. The focus of this program with Can Praxis is to help individuals understand the significance of what this injury brings into the family home, such as conflict, crisis, the challenges of communication, to help people better understand their injury, how it affects themselves, others, and the main focus of all our programs is to help individuals relearn how to have at least one effective conversation a day with the person that's most important to them. Because if they can have one, they can have 2. And if you can have 2 effective conversations a day, then you're set up for success.
Right. And you work with veterans and first responders?
Our participants come from the clientele who are veterans, either serving or retired, as well as first responders. And now we've also included healthcare workers.
Oh, that's great. And what about the actual name, Can Praxis? Where did the name come from, and what is the significance of that?
Well, Can Praxis really comes down to understanding what we're all about. I mean, CAN stands for the Canadian can-do attitude. You know, it was just over 100 years ago when they said, you know, Vimy Ridge couldn't be taken. And guess what? We took it. Praxis is basically Latin, which means to take theory and put it into practice. Therefore, essentially, the name Can Praxis means walk the talk. And that's what we do each and every day.
Mm-hmm. Why is your program so different from sitting in a psychologist's office?
On a 3-day program, such as ours, we will see a participant more in those 3 days than a participant will see of their own therapist in a year. Because it's a very condensed program within those 3 days, there's an awful lot that's going on, so that as soon as you start making progress, you're able to keep moving forward and build additional momentum. The understanding, once again, that this is a educational and therapeutic program.
Mm-hmm. That's really amazing. So many veterans are on different drugs to manage their health symptoms. Do you find that experiences with horses that pharmaceuticals aren't needed as much?
Well, the biggest challenge with this injury is it affects different people differently. So there's no quick fix solutions. Mm-hmm. What we do know is Dr. Brenda Abbey out of Calgary, working with youth and equine therapy, her studies have shown that the human brain around horses produces dopamine. Dopamine being the natural feel-good chemical the brain produces. Yeah. The importance of that is when that dopamine is being produced, it helps reconnect the higher functioning part of the brain with the primitive part of the brain. What that does is that allows us then to sneak in, plant some seeds of education, and sneak out as well.
That's really incredible. So what are some of the significant changes that you see when people begin interacting in your programs?
Well, one is first the understanding of how the injury affects themselves. People aren't always aware of the body language signals they provide. What's so incredibly important about understanding communication is that 93% of any given conversation is nonverbal. That includes tone, inflection, grunts, groans, body posture, body language, etc., which means only 7% of any given conversation is your words. The understanding we are working with is that people with this injury may not be aware of how their body language or their tone or inflection may be causing conversations to go sideways. Working with horses that are experts in reading body language, people get to see for themselves the effects of modifying how they approach conversations in a way that is inviting others to be there with them. And horses, being experts at reading body language, understanding when someone's coming on too strong, understanding when someone needs to be a little stronger themselves. It's all there, very easy for the participants to see in real time how changing their approach can change their conversations.
Mm-hmm. That is really incredible. And what about people who may experience flashbacks? Or first responders or veterans, do you find, or are you aware of those kind of things lessening as well?
What we're aware of is that people with this injury are dealing with things such as mental health crisis, as well as interpersonal conflict. So during our programs, the horse arena facilitator is a trauma psychologist, an experienced psychologist used to dealing with, for example, these kinds of mental crises within the veteran and first responder communities. Mm-hmm. Understanding that means that should someone be experiencing disassociation and such during a program, it can be dealt with on the spot. What happens then is people are learning different techniques, methods, strategies to help themselves when they're around the horses, etc., to relearn how to attend to these in the future when they're no longer on the program. I'm hoping that makes sense for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's so different from a lot of traditional approaches for trauma or for psychology in general, I suppose.
Well, it's understanding what is it that we're trying to affect in a positive way. A lot of this is interpersonal communication. Mm-hmm. Interpersonal relationships are built on trust and respect. Exactly the same thing happens when you're working with herd animals such as horses. They're social. They want social interaction. They will help you relearn how to enter conversations and relearn how to be respectful to each other, relearn how to be trustful of each other, etc. And the horses are just absolutely fantastic in helping people rediscover those very important properties to a relationship, trust and respect.
Yeah, it's really incredible. How many people are involved in running your programs?
Generally, when we run a program, the 3 different phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, essentially, for a maximum of 6 couples, there are 2 facilitators for each program. One facilitator is the experienced trauma psychologist. The other facilitator in the classroom is a veteran or first responder who's certified in interpersonal conflict resolution mediation. So those particular individuals are there for the conflict, while the therapist is there for the crisis.
Okay. Wow. And you mentioned you have different sections of the program. You have a stage, first stage and a second stage and a third stage?
Yes, the program is in 3 phases because we understand quite simply one 3-day program is not enough to help people interact and modify human behavior. Mm-hmm. So the first phase is when you attend as a couple with your spouse, a partner, your family member. On that one, there's no riding of horses. It's all groundwork. It's all ground exercises. It's between the classroom and the arena, learning some new theory, and skills, and then applying those in the horse arena. Phase 2 is where the injured individual comes back, up maximum of 10 people, and on that 3-day program, they're actually taught how to ride and care for horses. The real work, though, however, is in the evenings around the campfire, debriefing the day's events and how far they've come forward. And then, for example, that would be 1 week. The following week would be the spouses only showing up for the 3-day program, because the spouses need as much assistance as the injured. And it's also the opportunity for them to build a stronger peer support group where they don't have to explain each other's relationships, their spouses to each other. They're already living similar experiences. And then the third phase is where couples come back together, and it's a 3-night pack ride out into the mountains, no electricity, no running water, and essentially the graduation, you might say, from the program is people have learned how to have a conversation, and that conversation doesn't go sideways and become destructive either mentally or physically. Rather, it's opportunities to relearn from each other.
It's really incredible. And I mean, I am aware of some of the things, and I have been fortunate enough to speak to some of the people who have been through your program. And I mean, people have said to me that it was life-changing for them. So it is just incredible what you do.
It's very humbling to hear how many people have been impacted in a positive way by this program. And long story short, the focus is on participants. That's where it is, that's where it will remain, and it's understanding each participant will take something different away from the program, and that it's not a cookie-cutter outcome, and it's not a couples retreat. It's a opportunity to get down and do some hard work on understanding the injury for yourself, for those most important to you, and then what do you want to do about it.
Right. And do you offer your program to individuals who are single?
The program is designed for 2 people. For example, the person with the injury, and then the person they would go to during the worst times of their life. So we're very much aware that not everyone is in a relationship with a spouse or partner. That's why we have people that will attend the program. We've had people attend with their adult children, or with their parents, or with siblings, with a relative, with their best friend.
Okay.
So that when they are having those bad days, this other person that's important to them understands how to have the conversations to help them move forward.
Yeah, that's really great. And does the program differ between, like, how you offer it to veterans versus how you offer it to first responders or health workers?
We do understand, for those in uniform, there's a lot of similarities. We also greatly understand there's a big difference in cultures. And for us, we believe it's extremely important to recognize the differences in those cultures. So that's why 1 month it would be a program for veterans, the following month a program for first responders, and then the following month a program for healthcare workers, helping them rebuild understandings within their own cultures as well as their peer support groups.
Wow. And how do people apply for your program, and what are the costs involved?
So, as a charity, we're able to provide this program at no cost to participants. And participants come to us through various ways. Either they contact us through social media, they're referred to us by their therapist, or by their unions or associations, or by Veterans Affairs, word of mouth. Essentially, people can get a hold of us just about any way you can imagine. The thing to understand, though, is people have to contact us. We don't chase after people. It's important that that people, if we're going to spend this kind of money on them, they demonstrate to us a desire and a commitment to overcome the injury. That's why they need to take the first steps in contacting us.
That makes sense. Do you have any, are you sponsored by the Canadian government?
No. We have received some emergency funding during the summer. As which enabled us to run some additional phase 2 programs. We're a charity that seeks sponsorship and donations from Canadian organizations, companies, corporations, and grassroots support as well.
Okay.
We're not tied down to any particular government agency, which means we are able to stay true to our aims and not have to worry about alternative agendas from different organizations, etc. For us, it's extremely important that the participants always come first.
Yeah, I respect you for what you're talking about. It's really incredible. Do you guys have any upcoming events for Can Praxis?
We were hoping to run a facilitators training workshop at the end of November. Current restrictions are making that something that might have to be postponed till the new year.
Yeah.
And we're hoping once the major restrictions have been lifted across Canada regarding the pandemic, that we'll have the funds available to start resuming our phase 1 programs as soon as possible.
Wow. So you're currently on kind of a break?
We're on a pause of programs while we continue to review and update our facilitators, our materials, our approaches. It's an opportunity to look for more facilitators, more funding, more sponsors. So we're actually keeping quite busy behind the scenes, making sure everything's in place so that we're able to relaunch programs at the first opportunity.
That's awesome. Do you have any memorable events or moments that you want to share with the listeners?
Well, what I can say is that each and every program is memorable, and it's just amazing how people 2, 3, 4 years down the road will reach out and say how much the program has been a positive experience for them. Mm-hmm. So it's always amazing, every program, where we see people who are very skeptical, and by the end of the program, they're going out and selling the program to others because they've come to understand what we're offering isn't a threat. It's actually a big hand up in their lives, their relationships, and their ability to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see Can Praxis in the next 5 years? Do you have long-term and short-term goals for your organization?
What would be absolutely fantastic is to be able to run programs in Ontario the same time we're running programs in Alberta. If we could be doing that, then we know we're being the most cost-effective we can be with donated funds, as donated money is not free dollars. It needs to be attended to respectfully. So if we can be running programs at the same time, Ontario, Alberta, that would be awesome, as well as providing peer group leadership training for other therapists, as we understand and we have come to see that a lot of therapists don't truly understand the cultures of the military and the first responder world. We want to help them with that by providing training workshops.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And do you guys have a webpage, Facebook link? How can people find out more about your organization?
You can find out on any social media platform just by doing a search for Can Praxis. And our website as well is simply www.canpraxis.com. That enables folks to find us in just about any platform they're looking.
Oh, this is really awesome information, Steve. Do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Well, what I will say is each and every participant deserves to be on a program like this, and that we're very concerned by people being caught up in programs or activities that, while may help them in the short term, it's the long-term care that we're very focused on.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we're asking people, if you want some information, don't hesitate, reach out, ask. And the other thing that's extremely important for us is to network with other veteran organizations and first responder groups across the country, because the more we work together, the more we'll be able to accomplish together.
That's right. Thank you so much, Steve Critchley.
Thank you very much for providing the opportunity for me to talk a bit about Can Praxis and to mention just how absolutely incredible our participants are.
Mm-hmm.
These are amazing people, and it's been a real humbling experience to work with them.
I can imagine. Thank you so much, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.